This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination. And on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, I refer to myself as a guide rather than host, as I too am traveling, supporting others, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy C. Wright. Today joins me Terrie Christine. Now, she is an internationally recognized intuitive energy healer for the past 19 years. She has been seen in and featured on Bravo hit TV show Real Housewives of Potomac, the OWN network Love and Marriage DC, Hay House Radio, Beyond the Ordinary, Straight Talk for the Soul, Quantum Conversations, and several times on Good Morning Washington. This is just a small morsel of the many platforms you can find her on. Through her work as an intuitive energy healer, she has mastered the ability to access her own intuition, which allows her to fully envision the struggles, hurts, fears, anxiety that you are currently going through. She works with clients all over the world and continues to be a source of emotional and spiritual healing in the self-empowerment community. Welcome, Terrie Christine, to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you, Tracy. I am so honored to be here. You said yes, and here we are.
All right, wonderful. So let's start our journey together. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So my name is Terrie Christine. I'm an internationally known intuitive energy healer, and I do a little psychic medium work. I spent 5 years on a psychic website, and the mediumship is discussing and communicating with the non-physical. But I specialize in focusing in the subconscious, where your limiting beliefs are. And here you're an adult and people, places, and things trigger you. However, it's a feeling that comes up. It is an opportunity to shift and respond differently. However, people say, oh, you did that, or you said that. And then they get involved with this back and forth with the physical stuff when, verbally and all that, when in fact, it's the subconscious being triggered, and you can have the opportunity to change.
Beautiful. So for our listeners, intuitive energy healer. So what does that mean? Like an intuitive energy healer, if I was going to come to someone who specializes in that?
Yeah, I love that question, because people do say that often. When I give them the title, they're like, what's that? Breaking it down, intuitive, meaning trusting the inner guidance, that inner knowing. So intuitively, I can pick up the patterns within your physical body and tell you about you. I'm not talk therapy. You don't have to tell me anything. Give me your first name and we're good. And I start telling you about you. I'm looking for the 5 ways that you developed in your environment, limiting beliefs. And then I start telling you, is it mom or dad, or mom and dad like figures, like grandparents? Is it God, someone else, or something else? Within that, they can overlap, or I can just come straight out and say, okay, it's mom, you were 7 years old. And then I said, give me a second. And I am clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, which means that with the clairaudient, I can hear conversation or words. Clairvoyant is seeing movies in my head, and clairsentient, Tracy, I'll say, I can feel it. I am right on it. And that's that feeling that I know that I can share what's going on. So, excuse me. And then the energy healing work. So I got distracted with the intuitive part. And so with the energy healing, meaning everyone holds a blueprint and the energy within you. And so I can intuitively read it. I've been doing this work for 19 years. So there's patterns that I see regularly. I will reveal what I see. It doesn't necessarily mean I see you and mom arguing. I can see 2 fish in the sea swimming, and one jumps out and swims away. That means somebody left the family unit. So I'll describe what's going on, and then I'll get the age and when the strongest limiting belief. Now we have hundreds of thousands of them. And they'll reveal themselves throughout a session, and it's an hour long. And so I'll just share what's going on. And then healing is I can shift it. So I can shift your energy so that it can be released. You feel lighter. A lot of people, most say that They have clarity. They see that things don't appear to be bothering them anymore because I was able to shift that energy within their subconscious, the blueprint of their physical body, and then things start to change.
Beautiful. That's a wonderful explanation. So thank you for that, for those that are listening and are very curious about what that intuitive energy healer does. So when did this come into your life? You mentioned 19 years ago. Did this intuitive energy healing find you, or did you find it?
Well, everyone has the ability to do a lot of the things that I mentioned. However, that feeling, Tracy, that you get like, oh, something just happened or something's going to happen, that's your intuition. And most people ignore it.
Right.
And so when you start trusting more of it, all the magic starts happening in your life, right? And so what catapulted me to create this as a career, because let me tell you, I was 100% corporate. I didn't even know what yoga was back then.
Right. Right.
And and I was in a 14-year relationship with the father of our children. We have two girls.
Oh,
And I kept pouring and pouring and pouring love because that's what I was shown from my mother and my grandparents, that you have to serve and service your mate. And I did that endlessly. And when you keep pouring, think about it. You have a jug and you pour, and all of a sudden there's no
mhm.
more in that jug, right? Well, that's the same thing in your physical body. You can only do so much before resentment, emotional pain and suffering starts, and then your body starts responding and you start getting sick and weak and all those things. And so here I was at the end, at about the 13-year mark, and then I started crying. I'm like, I don't, whatever. I was crying every night, not just a little. Oh no, it was gut wrenching. And to the point my daughter had to come in and say, Mommy, please don't cry anymore. When you have your own daughter coming in to try to lift you, you know it's bad.
Mhm.
And so right after that, I said, God, I think I'm done now. So I woke up, climbed into the bathroom, laid on the floor, and then I had a spiritual epiphany. It was literally like lucid dreaming. I left my body. I was in the universe. I could see stars. I could feel the dense, thick, it was like a feeling of like you're in fog, but you can feel the wetness of it.
Mhm.
And then I knew I was complete. I felt like, yeah, I'm done. I'm complete. I had this sense of being lifted out of misery. And then I heard three simple words: love will come. Everything that I had been begging my partner, I'm like, yay, yay. I'm like literally scrambled back into my body. It felt just like that. Stood up next day, my whole life changed. Everything changed. I didn't even have time to read books, but something told me, go to the bookstore, go to the bookstore. And I started picking up authors that I'd never even heard of. Remember, I didn't even know what yoga was back then.
Right.
So I didn't know who Esther and Jerry Hicks or Wayne Dyer or Eckhart Tolle. I didn't know any of them. But I went self-development. I'm like, what's this? What's this? I brought home 20 books. Look, we were 1950s house, and it was 1950, honey. He created that, and I just accepted it.
Mhm.
And so he
Mhm.
took care of the outside of the house. I took care of the kids, my own job, inside cooking, cleaning. And so when you're doing it for two kids and a partner and yourself, one person taking care of four people, it was
Yeah.
impossible, but I was doing it. And then
Right.
when I couldn't do it anymore, that's when I said, I don't want it anymore. And so I felt like God threw me a rope to climb out of that hole. And then, reading the books, and I got the strength to leave the relationship. Now, that was for me. I'm not telling it's for everyone, but that was for
Sure.
me because I knew that if I did continue to stay and I didn't see that love, then it would not have been good. So I did go on the journey. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, you and I, because I started with Reiki.
Mhm.
I had no idea anything about energy work. Someone did it on me a couple of times, and I said, "Ooh, I think I need to try this kind of stuff. I want to play with it."
Yeah.
And then when I had my second attunement, I am not joking. There are certain parts of my life that I will never forget. And it was that second attunement. And what ended up happening is she had her hands in front of me and I levitated off that chair. And I didn't
Mhm.
realize it because I felt so light. My eyes were closed. But when she completed, I went boom in the chair, literally. And I said, what in the world just happened? She kind of chuckled, and I would never have known it if my
Mhm.
whole body didn't come back down, hit hard on that
Right.
chair.
Right.
It was incredible. And so from there, I just sort of left corporate, became an esthetician, and that's when I started playing with this energy. I'm like, woo, I got people laying on the table.
Yeah.
So I got paid to play. And every single client was saying, what are you doing? I can feel it.
Mm.
And so over time, Tracy, I realized that there's more to what was trained through Reiki.
Hmm.
I was able to maneuver energy where I wanted it to go. There was a certain way I was seeing, and then I would start breathing a certain way. And I realized that, I call these things lily pads. So Reiki allowed me to step onto this lily pad until, my connection to God's source energy said, ooh, there's more to this.
Mm.
And so I sort of maneuvered away from doing those protocols because literally everyone, let me just say it, every single one would say, what just happened? What are you doing? And what can you tell me? They want to know. And the
Right.
protocol is like, we're just the messenger and we're just the
Mhm.
conduit for the energy. It goes to the body wherever it's going to heal. We hug them and on their merry way. People want clarity.
Yeah.
And so I would start telling them what I was seeing and what I was seeing in their body. And then when I would see this, space, because I was trained for a year through intuitive development, I'd see this darkness in their body. And then I would like, oh, let me move the energy there. And it grew to where I'm so supersized now, doing the mediumship work. And sometimes they come in when I'm to help me while I'm working through the energy healing through a body. I can release, when people have physical challenges, it's an emotional connection to pain. Once you shift the emotional connection, there's no pain. And
Right.
so people will walk out with no pain. They'll say they've had 8 surgeries, where I did have a 24-year-old come to me and had 8 surgeries on his elbow, couldn't move it. And 10 seconds later, he was moving it. And I talk about it so lightly, but it truly did happen. And I have magical moments with my clients regularly with back and neck and shoulders and elbows and everything in the body you can imagine. And so it just has grown into the ultimate purpose here. People will ask, as I'm sure they ask you, is tell me my purpose here in in
Hmm.
this world. Well, it's to expand and grow, and everything else is a choice. So we expand and grow. And as I was expanding and growing through all this energy work, I've now done it for 19 years, and I don't see much that's new, but every once in a while I will. I'm like a kid in a candy store. Woo woo, let's play with that.
Wonderful. And I love that you shared this story. Very similar journeys we seem to have you know, as a child, it was like, you'll be a housewife, you'll be a really good housewife. And I too had that first marriage that it was that 1950. And it really resonated. He worked on the outside, I worked on the inside. And you get lost in taking care of your family and not looking back. I would do it again, of course, right? But trust the process. And I love that the universe gave you this beautiful gift of you having this experience and this awakening that really showed you the way. Like, here we go, we're on this path, and things started happening. So it's this idea that we just need to trust the process. You're there where you are for a reason. Don't get frustrated and look at me or you. And I tell clients or students all the time, don't see what I'm doing. Your path's going to be different. You have a season right now where you're taking care of your children or doing what you need to do. It will come. Keep doing the work. Keep being on that path. I'm sure you never imagined 25 years ago all the amazing opportunities that you have had through energy work. I mean, you are
Yes.
international and
Yes.
TV shows, books. I mean, and you're out there helping and teaching others. And you probably never imagined that when you were in tears, right? And
Yes.
when that
No,
little daughter of yours came in, and I mean, and here
Mhm.
you are changing lives. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you said keep doing the work. We may be where we are and so gifted and expanded and connected to God. I'll label it
Mhm.
God, but higher
Yeah.
self, source, light, whatever anyone wants to choose to call it. But when we're so connected, we still are in this physical body. I call it like a tumbleweed, all those little
Mhm.
sticks woven together and one breaks and you have a trigger. And I still do to this day. However, they're far and few in between. I see when it's coming on. I see my environment. I see what's happening, and I can respond differently, which I tell people you can choose to respond differently and attract what supports you. And knowing that life is here to give you support and not cause struggle. But
Mhm.
it's all that subconscious stuff that was put upon you in the four walls that you grew up in, that's where your struggle, your soul is saying, I don't want to live like all those other people. However, you only know to live like them. So
Mhm.
your soul is going to struggle based on what your environment was
Mhm.
until you can reclaim and say, wait, just like you were saying, and we were saying the 1950s house, is
Yeah.
that this isn't working for me.
Mhm.
I need something more that supports my soul and what my soul is calling for.
Mhm.
And then that's when you say, I have to be happy for me because all
Sure.
this other stuff is not making me happy, even
Sure.
when you might have all of the support things of money and a
Mhm.
home and a car all around you and still not be happy. And that's exactly what was happening with me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, no, so I either needed to do something about it if I loved this life, this body,
Mhm.
myself, because I didn't see it going in a good direction.
Sure. And we're living, some of us live in this high function anxiety state as we're going through. And then we have that culturally created self. As a child, I could hear things and knew things, but religiously in a religious household, that was frowned upon. And I believe my mother and my grandmother had this ability. My grandmother was more open about it, where my mother's like, no, because she's very Bible based. So that was kind of pushed down. And then as I got married and had children, that was pushed down. And even if you choose not to, say, be a Reiki practitioner or master teacher, going through the process, getting Reiki, getting the attunement, I felt like kind of sprayed the Windex and cleared the view and relax. It's a
Yes.
stress reducing modality. And even if you don't stay with it, it can be, like you said, that lily pad or that launching pad to take you to your true purpose, to get the body relaxed and a little bit more clarity. So you're like, now I see where I'm going. And maybe you're going to do light language. Maybe you'll do the intuitive energy healing. Maybe you'll go into, art with Reiki or something, right? You never know where it's going to take you, but taking that
Yeah.
first step and saying, you know what, let's get the body calm, the soul calm. Let's get things relaxed so that these gifts can kind of reappear. It seemed the more that I did attunements, the more I work with myself and others, it seems to increase, right? New little gifts appear. Like, well,
Yes.
this is new.
Yes. Yes.
I
I
didn't know
love
this.
that.
And it was probably already there, but it was just, under the dust, under the muck that I've created.
Yes. Yes. And then that was also put upon you
Yeah,
from, parents,
of
grandparents,
course.
and then their
Yeah,
patterns and realizing it doesn't work for you. But
doesn't work.
yes,
It doesn't
no.
work, and it's okay. Uh, I had someone that I was interviewing the other day, and she was a medium, and she said that my sister was coming through. And the message that my sister said was, it's okay to change your mind. So this kind of fits well with what we're talking about because,
Yes.
we were in a marriage, wasn't working. Aesthetically, everybody looked and say, well, what's wrong with this? And it was okay to change your mind. I don't want to be in this life anymore. How can I shift and redirect? And by letting go of something, it opened up all these other opportunities, a whole new reality for you.
Yes. I thought it was going to be a medium because an experience happened before I had the spiritual epiphany.
Hmm.
And it was with a medium who connected to my granddad and gave my sister,
Hmm.
specifically her, because she was lost in loss after he died. And so, after I saw what the medium did on a three-way call, I'm like, I want to save lives like that. That's the way I felt that medium gave the message to my sister because she
Sure.
became more alive and alert and now not feeling like she wanted to be with him and he's in heaven now. So I realized like, I want to do that. And then now I still had to focus on the turmoil of the relationship, then had the spiritual epiphany. And then when I left, I said, ooh, I'm going to focus on that. But back then, I'm dating myself. Back then, the only people I could find that taught mediumship work were all in the UK, literally all in the UK. And I'm like, I
Yes.
don't know anybody there, so I'm
Yeah.
not sending my money there. And so then I just pivoted, but I pivoted, and there was a perfect reason for all of this, because you do have to start with basics. I
Hmm.
literally had to teach myself how to meditate.
Yeah.
There were no books back then. And it took me 3 months. But if anyone to this day can ask how you get to the deeper level of the mind, I can tell you step by step by step by
Sure.
step. Because it's not just sitting in the corner and, journaling, oming, and clearing your mind. It does
Yeah.
take a few little things and
Yeah.
practice too. But I never gave up, because in my intuitive development program, I remember at the very beginning, this, like I told you, certain things I'll never forget. She said, do whatever it takes. And I remember the journal I had was wide open, and I wrote it across both pages, do whatever it takes. And I find to this day, I literally do whatever it takes for my
Mm.
clients, for myself, and dedication of knowing, trusting and knowing supported and loved, and that everything is going to be okay even when the clock strikes 12.
Beautiful. So, working with this energy for 19 years, and I'm sure you've been working with it your whole life, though. What are
Yes.
some of the misconceptions that you have found about energy work?
From other people.
Anything that you've gone through in your life as you experienced, I'm sure you have people like I do that come up and say things like it's woohoo or this and that.
Yeah, it's becoming more acceptable with people. Of course, when when you're dating, it's difficult. Because the first thing when you say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" "I'm an intuitive energy healer."
Hmm.
"What's that?" So you already know, okay, you're going to have to see first if they are
Hmm.
open to change and open to things that they don't understand. And that's a 50-50, because
Yeah.
sometimes people get so grooved, and you can figure it out in the first date or the third, but I kind of have to push them off, because that's the number. This is my life. This is a lifestyle, as you know,
Yeah.
Tracy. And these listeners that, once you start beginning to live in gratitude, everything you love, everything is you're grateful for, the walls, the hot water, the pillow, everything. And then things start shifting, because now you go from even seeing negative things in things that look negative, you can see positive in
Hmm.
things that don't feel so great, right? And then trusting is a, you have to live it. It is
Yeah.
not a selected, organizational chart. It has to be in your life constantly 24/7, to be able to trust. And then when something happens that doesn't feel good, because I do bring that up often, is because people say, well, it didn't work out. And, it's easy for her to say, my friends, I've lived it too.
Yeah.
But then the patterns within yourself of being able to trust beyond, because if you're saying, I want something in a box that looks, 3 by 3, well, you're not going to allow yourself to get the, 900 by 900,
Yes.
of getting more than what you're saying. If you only say you want $100 in the bank, then you miss the opportunity of $1 million in the bank, right? And so being able to know that things are beyond what you are using with your eyes and ears. And so when I'm hearing people hesitate, all they have to do is work with us. And there's no
Mhm.
hesitation out of that. You turn the naysayers into believers. And then they can question. I love the flashes. I remember when I was working with Monique and Chris Samuels, and they were the lead cast members on Love and Marriage DC that I was on, and that's how I ended up getting. I manifested her, because I wanted to be back on
Oh.
TV.
Hmm.
It took me 3 months. She found me before she got the contract for Love and Marriage DC, because there's many of them, and then she says, we're working so well. I love the way things are going. I want to give you. I've got this opportunity, and I want to give your name to the producers. So when I first saw Chris, Monique brought Chris and the three kids into a group setting that I was working out of at the time. And I remember Chris was hesitating, because he comes from, Bible ministries and that I respect, and that was how he was living. So in the Bible, sometimes the things that we do are like, what?
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's judgment. So when he came in, he was sitting on the floor, and I went over to his foot and I put my hands around his ankle and I said something, "You're having some pain in this ankle, aren't you?" He whipped his foot out of my hands. He says, "I'm getting out of here." It was the funniest thing because of how he said it. And then he said it with a little smile. And then Monique took his arm and she says, "Come on now." And I turned him into a believer
Sure.
because over time, he realized that I was making sense, that my messages were from what he was reading in the Bible. They are from
Mm-hmm.
God, they are from
Sure.
that energy spirit of all that is. And it's about enlightening, giving you clarity, giving you empowerment, and it's all with love.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to another person and I said, we're both from Baltimore City, but there's a big age gap. He's a really good friend of mine. And I said, "You learn to hustle with love." He goes, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to write that down."
Yeah.
Because, when we're coming from an environment that we had to teach ourselves survival mechanisms. And then over time, as we have gone within, and some do it faster than others, and some it takes a little while, like me. It was taking me to have a spiritual epiphany to finally shift and see things differently, meaning from the inside out, not the outside in, that I was able to realize that I am hustling with love, that I
Yeah.
am able to expand and grow. And my ultimate purpose is to make sure that people are not suffering twice, because I know what it feels like and it
Sure.
looks like to go to the bottom and not hit that button, thank goodness. And I'm still here.
Yeah, I love that. Hustle with love. That would be great on a t-shirt.
Yes, yes.
Need to put that up on your website.
Yes.
All right, and with
Yeah.
religion, many people think that there's some type of dogma or religion attached to Reiki, and it really comes down just to love and service, and that's what Jesus was about when he walked on earth, right? He had
Yes.
disciples, right? He had people
Yes.
that were also with him as well. So it's just how you look at it, and how you said with judgment, some people are so tethered to one particular word and how it should be, and that was how my mother was with it, that the yoga was not good, and how is that of God, and how is it this way, and I'm not thinking of those things, Mom, when I'm in solitude, and it's my journey with God and my relationship with God, and I don't think it's really fair for you to judge, but that's how people
Exactly.
are. That's how people are. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And I love how you manifested that. One of the techniques I have been doing recently, when instead of looking at what someone else has and be jealous of it, I say, that's for me. That's for me. That's for me.
Nice.
So,
I
yeah.
love that.
So that's a nice thing to kind of do if you see something that inspires you and you're struggling a little bit with manifestation or where to go with it. You can look at that and say, that's for me. And
Yeah.
there's it's a brewery here in El Paso, Texas, and I would see their little ads and things. And I thought, let me reach out. No, you know what? That's for me. They're going to reach out, and they just reached out yesterday. And this was a couple months, so give it grace, with this in time. But it took
Nice.
a couple when I would see it, like, that's for me. That's for me. And I got a
Nice.
message the other day that they invited me to come do yoga and Reiki. And I'm like, there we go. So that's another technique to throw in there, I guess. If you're,
Nice. I love that.
yeah.
What I do is I learned years ago, and this is actually before, because I came from, next to nothing when,
Mhm.
you have teenage parents that are
Yes.
giving birth to children, that, I learned to celebrate everyone. And so, I mean, that's everyone. When someone says they have a win, no matter where they
Hmm.
are in the plateau of life, I just say, I'm celebrating you,
Yeah.
congratulations. And, when I hear people, are not having positive feelings, let's say about someone who has a different financial grounding, may it be a celebrity or whatever, I just say I celebrate them for their hard work
Mm.
and dedication. I celebrate you for where you are. And I believe that if we can just get to the point of just celebrating everyone,
Mhm.
then we wouldn't have this push-pull. I swear we would
Yeah.
have more world peace. If
Right.
we could just celebrate all of ourselves and know that something someone did is paid off. May it be manifesting, because I am also a master manifester, so congratulations on that. And then knowing K-N-O-W, that
Mhm.
that's for me as well, because you
Yeah.
believe that.
You believe it, yeah. And even just think of how different, whether it's Reiki or, any type of other energy work that you do, before you're reacting, when that emotion, say of anger, hatred comes up, that you just place the hands right here.
Yes.
Breathe to shift that
Yes.
energy or soften it. If that was taught early in the schools, if that was taught at, board meetings and situations and in the military, right? What a different world we would have just to pause for
Yes.
a moment and even approaching gratitude also, as you said, even when it's the dark times, find the silver lining. When my sister passed, I mean, that was taking the Jenga piece out of our family, but finding the silver lining, her passing, kind of encouraged me to open a business. And so now, I'm
Mm.
helping others. I brought a podcast, I made the first ever camper ship in our area with the Girl Scouts in her name. And I put her
Oh,
name in stories and things like that to spread it. And so finding how that camper ship helped 75 kids go to camp. So even though I miss her, I can still find that positivity and continue with how she was kind and giving into the world. So even
that's
those
beautiful.
tragedies, look for the little bit of a silver lining. Where's the good in this? Where's the
Yeah,
positivity in it? Yeah.
that is so beautiful. Good for you.
Good. So you have helped with your intuition, families, with their struggle, hurt, fears, anxiety that they're going through. What has been the biggest challenge or struggle you faced in your journey?
Mm. You know, uh, and it's quite often with anyone, hurry
Mhm.
up and hurry up and make it happen, right?
Impatience, right?
Yes, yes, because, mom putting us in a survival environment when I was really young and having to learn to survive versus thrive. But
Yes.
I was in the shower thinking about this podcast. That's what I do. Shower is a conduit, water is a conduit for energy.
I'm
And
feeling you. We have a lot of similarities. I have to go into the shower too, and I'll see things. So it's quite interesting because my friend was like, "Why aren't you taking a bath?" I said, "It's something with the shower that having the water." So that's interesting. You said that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's with the
yeah.
showers it comes through. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so water is a conduit for energy. So, I was started, getting things and I was thinking about, and it popped into my head like, all right, sit back and relax, Terry. I say that because corporate said, you got deadlines, you got to get it done, and it has to look like
Mhm.
this, and you got to make them millions of dollars because that's what I was, a director of sales for a company. And and it pushed me, pushed me, pushed me, and so I realized that once I moved into this as a full-time business and career, that I can sit back and receive, but I'm not just sitting back waiting. I am utilizing the trust, the knowing, the gratitude. People, write all this down, man. These are the pieces of your puzzle here.
It is.
And then manifesting through meditation, just like when you said, this is for me, that is a
Mhm.
form of manifesting. When you own
Yeah.
it, you become the magnet and you're attracting it. And so even when the clock strikes 12, it's very interesting. I love the flashes. So when I tell little stories, it's so people can relate. I'm
Mhm.
exactly like you are and you me. And so I was trying to sell. I was an investor during COVID because, you know, things slowed down. I don't take insurance, probably just like you. And it slowed down a little bit. And I'm always on the go. I don't own a TV. I'm running around. I'm constantly got something going if it's not social media, emails, whatever. And so there was something I needed to sell in real estate when I created this mini business to keep me busy, besides doing the whole inside of my house by painting and all that. But I I said to myself, man, it sure would look great if I could sell this before I had this dental appointment. Because I was hit by a car when I was 8 and the condyles, my jaw was broken. And so over time, things have shifted. In the last 4 years, I've been in the dentist, if not 4 times a month. It's like
Mm.
6 or 8, but I told him to put my name on the chair. But I said, man, it sure would be great if I could sell this one last thing to dump all that money over here to the dentist because they
Yeah.
want the cash. And when I went to the dentist and I said it, I believed it sure would look great and feel wonderful if that could happen because I believe it can. I know it can. I just felt that. I threw it out there. I left, did the dental work, came back several hours later. I was a little groggy, opened my computer, and it sold. Like I was, and I didn't even expect it.
Yeah.
It wasn't even in the market. It was the client had paid off, and I said, "Thank you, Jesus, thank you." And so, we, and also you see how I am childlike. I
Mm-hmm.
did that. I truly did that because I'm not forgetting how I'm one with
Mm-hmm.
God and Jesus and
Mm-hmm.
all the other beautiful angels and non-beings, but being able to lift them as they lifted me and granted my wish, my desire.
Sure.
Oh, it's so perfect in every way. And when you live like that, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're laughing and chuckling, but you're feeling my happiness. You're feeling my uplift.
Sure. Sure.
And so if
Yeah, I do the same
everyone,
thing as well. Yeah, when
yes,
something happens, I'm like, woo, like, yeah,
yes,
and playful, turn music on, dance a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, and a lot of
yes,
people forget that too with that
yes.
childlike excitement. So, yeah.
Yes. And when we live in that, children, they have no care in the world. They're just living, they're enjoying and receiving. So when we're in that space, you'll find me dancing on the street, in the parking lots. And I'm like, "Hey, it doesn't matter. You dance. How do they say? Dance like nobody's watching."
Hmm.
And I do. I live in that space of complete gratitude and trusting and knowing. So being able to trust 100% because, think about it, everyone. We have those 4 walls and, mom and dad stuff will creep in from your subconscious. And the stuff is so low for me because I've picked off the juicy fruit, meaning the stuff that was on the surface that I cleared through all the work I've done and then going to support mechanisms of what I do. Other people have, I have 2 people that I would go to. If something big comes up, I can breathe through it, look at it, let
Hmm.
my environment support me. Or if I'm still triggered, the next day, then I know because it should not last a day. When I'm
Yeah.
still triggered the next day, I might reach out and say, okay, let's do a little tune up.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it's not as often, which means now it's so deep in there. But it really is about just sitting back, but still in the process of manifesting. So
Beautiful.
it's like the body's relaxed, but the energy is saying, bring forth all the things that are fruitful in my life. So it's like a, win-win on both sides. You don't have to push forward.
Right.
That's what I find that I have to be fully present, that I don't go back into some old patterns.
Very good. Well, your answer perfectly goes well to our next question was when it was time for that energetic tune up. What do you look for? What qualities do you look for in an energy healer?
Oh, well, me.
I love it. Looking in the mirror.
Exactly. It's funny. I will have people tell me that they do similar things, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then I'll hear what they say. And then I'm like, okay, you need work. And so,
Right.
the first thing, if there's doubt, any questions of doubt. And that doesn't mean that, oh, I'm still working on getting the things that I want and it's not happening. Delete, delete. It is happening. It's just not in your field of view at this moment. So that's where you have to trust that whatever it takes. I mean, the first time I was on Real Housewives of Potomac, it took a year for me to manifest it. But remember, my friends, do whatever it takes. I never gave up.
Yeah.
And so we also have to know that there is a fine line between creation and lack. So if you're focused, meaning trying to create what you don't have, and you're focused on it all the time, you're only focusing on what you don't have. So you create what you don't have, which is more what you don't have. So that's why I say be selective times. In the morning, okay. In the shower, do what, what will it take? What will it take to have? Or what you said, your statement is, that's mine. I'll take that. That's surely, I can't wait to bring it on. There's a silver platter, receive. And then let it go. Don't talk or think about it throughout the day, and then say it again before you go to bed. So you're putting it out into the collective energy for others to snag a hold of it and bring it to you, as you are the magnet to receive what you put out there.
Beautiful.
And so what I do look for is, someone who's rock solid on believing what they know they can generate and create. And also, it's, girl, it's my intuitive kicks in. I'm like, spidey senses, they all go up. And it's not often that I will work and allow someone to work on me. The other day, someone was saying, oh, I have this friend, she can help you on something. And I do have one thing that is in my cells, which is the surgery that I had when I had my jaw fixed at the age of 14, actually. So as I mentioned, the condyles were broken at 8. They wired my jaw. But just like if you have a surgery on your shoulder, if you don't do PT right away, you get frozen shoulder. I had frozen jaw. And so I could only open it less than the curve of a spoon.
Oh, wow.
Less than. So everything that I ate was through a straw from the age of 8 to 14. Everything. And so, mother didn't know what, they're still teenagers, and, they didn't really have the means of getting it done, but God loves me and manifested a couple who met my brother, and he ended up going to church with them. And then, oh, you have 2 sisters. And then we started going to church. Lo and behold, they have a meeting with my mom and said, oh, our son is a dentist and he lives in Florida. And there's a special program for children just like your daughter, who is so special that no one would know what to do. And it's a free program in Florida. So she moved us to Florida and I had the surgery.
Wow.
Then I know, I'm telling you. So master manifester, even when I was little. So being able to have the surgery and to adjust that. But believing that everything that you can have is rightfully yours. Now, if you're wanting to be president, you have some history, and that might be another story.
Right.
But people are saying, I want to get out of lack. I want to get out of struggle. And you can, because again, the 4 walls, your upbringing, were what you only knew and what your parents were saying and how they were acting. And then that's what you took on. So it's about altering your thoughts and altering how you feel. But then, so now thinking about somebody working on me really has to be someone really magnificent.
Right.
Because the stuff that's in there, and as I was saying, the jaw thing, I was talking to another dentist. My dentist referred to for something that he said, this has to be so tedious with you. And when he said, we're going to incubate you, I started crying. Because when I had the surgery when I was 4, because it was a long time ago, 14, 4, that I was laying on the table and they put the tube down my throat as I was wide awake. Wide awake. And now people nowadays, that's inhumane. No one would ever do that. But it's such a memory to even think about, because I can instantly see myself on that table with my arms and legs as they were holding me down, and they were literally killing me. And that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And so I get triggered by that.
Yes.
But there's not, and then that's on the forefront, and it's I swear it's just in the cells, it's in that body.
Right, right, right.
So, and that's, other than that, that's a big one that really needs to come out of that cellular level of what was, because that's literally like goes head to toe when you're laying on a table and someone's trying to kill you.
Right, 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 right.
So, but so it has to be someone very exceptional, and then all the pieces of the puzzle that I mentioned to get the job done. And you got to work on yourself, my friend. So anyone saying, I'm a healer and I'm this and I'm
Mhm.
that, well, how much have you worked on yourself? Are you doing whatever it takes? Are you seeing that there's no
Mhm.
judgment? I have to still check myself every once in a while
Oh,
and go, oh,
sure,
wait a minute,
sure. Yeah.
because that can creep in. But being able to say, I have to stay very focused
Mhm.
on no judgments, on living in service, of knowing the ebb and flow. So I'm not just going to go, everything is for free, because it doesn't work that way, because then there's no value in free, right?
Right.
There's massive value in what we do.
Right, right. And it's a constant back and forth. I had something yesterday that I had a rental company that I was working with, and they did something, and man, it triggered. And,
Yeah.
I had a pause in my response to them. I'm like, need to heal. And I
Yeah.
paused before I sent that email. I
Yeah.
reread it. Nope. Delete, delete, delete. Rewrite. Delete,
Yeah.
delete, delete. So
Yeah.
it's a continuous process. But the old me, man, I would have went guns a blazing,
Yeah.
setting it off. But
And look what
no,
you did.
we're
Good for you.
working, we're breathing, we have the tools, and so you're human. And you
Yes.
figure like, oh, this work, and look, I'm right back to,
Yes.
so it's a
Yes.
work in progress. So
Like a little tumbleweed.
yeah, very, very good. So what advice would you give someone who's just entering, this healing work, spiritual work?
Yeah. So number one, meditate. Yeah, gotta start with meditation. You
Mhm.
have to make it a practice. It has to be every
Mhm.
day. Because how in the world are you going to get your connection to source if you're not
Mhm.
even trusting source, because you're so far into your head or the goals that you set for yourself or what's for dinner? And you got to quiet your mind and reconnect and be fully connected at all times.
Right.
And then taking steps. I mean, everyone, you've heard from a master, and that's not ego, it's all the work that I have done,
Mhm.
is all the tips of gratitude. Gratitude is key. That should be the next one. Living in gratitude, that is a lifestyle. Trusting and knowing, that is a
Mhm.
lifestyle. Knowing that you can manifest, that is a lifestyle. And so all of these elements are incorporated in, but then it's like you can master meditation. So, okay, keep meditating. Now add the next thing,
Mhm.
gratitude. Because if you think that you're going to do it all at the same time, it's like a doctor in their apprenticeship. And if you think the doctor has to learn all of the things all at once, they're going to be a master of nothing.
Right.
So you have to master meditation, okay, and then keep it going. Then master living in gratitude, then keep it going. And that's why 19 years, it thinks like a lot of time,
Mhm.
but then it was mastering everything
Sure.
as I built the blocks to be where I am today. I have several people, I'm a healer, I've been doing it for a year and I want to be like you. Okay, great. You have another 18 years to go.
Sure, sure. Yeah, they don't see like
Yeah.
I'm visualizing the iceberg, where or they're only seeing the tip of it and not seeing the whole rest of it and all the work that you put into it. I mean, it's
Yes.
that intention, the focus, the belief. There's so many parts to that. And
Yes.
if and some people, I had someone come through my studio yesterday and say, I just can't do the meditation. And I'm like, well, there's some different ways to do it. Like in Reiki, you have like a Gashiho meditation where you're moving or doing something, can you go out into nature and walk? So there's different ways to do it if you don't want to sit
Yes.
there. I mean, you can bring in mudras and humming. And so find your just right that works for you. And you might have to, as you
Yeah.
said before, play with it. Play with it, have
Yes.
fun. If
Yes.
yoga's not for you, okay, let's go to something else, right? Maybe
Yes.
your piece comes in a Pilates class or or a ballet class. My daughter went from class to class and like, yeah, it's not for me, but then she found ballet. And I'm like, well, there you
Yes.
go. That's your
Nice.
place. So yeah, keep
Nice.
keep searching. Don't quit. Keep going until you find it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do whatever it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what books do you recommend?
Mm. My very first book, Creative Visualization. And everyone asked me, well, who? It's Shakti, and the last name was G.
Okay.
But I still have it, and I don't pull it out often because I
Mm-hmm.
read it, and it was the very first one, realizing that my thoughts can create things.
Mm-hmm.
Because believe me, corporate, your kids, a
Mm-hmm.
1950s house, taking care of everything, making sure dinner's on the table when he comes in,
Yep.
doing the dishes, doing the laundry, doing the cat box. Oh, you got to read them, got to wash them. Then you got to take care of the rest of the laundry before you go to bed at midnight and then start again at 5 in the a.m. So, you know, being able to meditate is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. So, and I got distracted. Where are we going now? I had so much that came in my head all of a sudden, and it's
I
like,
know, and
oh,
as you told the story, it jumped into my mind of a story about my ex-husband, of how, you do everything. I mean, his
yes.
job was just to go to work, and he came home and spent time with the kids. And I remember getting some kind of like storage unit that had three different parts to it, and I had organized his shoes accordingly right by the front door. So he had his work shoes, his lawn shoes or something, and his golf shoes or something. And he was at some kind of training, and there was a speaker there, and he was pointing and talking to people, and he said, "You can tell a lot about a person how they organize their shoes." And he
Oh,
pointed to my ex-husband and said, "How do you organize your shoes?" And he said, "Well, I have the red bin, I have the blue bin, I have the yellow bin."
oh,
And then the man
wow.
proceeded to describe what it meant about him as a particular type of manager.
Oh,
Then he
wow.
was done, and my ex said to him, "Well, that's really great, but my wife did that."
And she gets the credit. And now I know it was about the book. So there you brought it back. That's funny
We circled
because
it back around.
yeah, there it is. A creative visualization about being able to see things differently. And because I
Hmm.
couldn't see it
Sure.
with what you were talking about and your organization, what my
Mm,
mind had me going, I
sure.
couldn't. That's why I rolled back, and meditation is so important to clear your mind
Yeah.
so that you can create in your mind the things that you would want. I'm such a master now at meditating that I don't just sit and let it come through. I'll start with a story, and
Hmm.
then my mind starts like a movie, starts
Yep.
creating the story. And then I'm like, oh, this is exciting of how it can be.
Yeah.
So creative visualization, anything written by Esther and Jerry Hicks,
Mm.
anything written by Wayne Dyer, they are the masters of energy and understanding where this comes from. And, I call that psychic 101. It's because now if I read it, I'd be, I got this, I know this, I could write this book, which I did write a book, but
Sure.
I feel like that helps someone to start to understand because those were the books that I grabbed, not knowing that was the basic level of understanding, and then moved on from there.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, what other services do you offer? Do you offer classes, trainings?
Yes, so everything and anything on my website. No. So through that, I offer, intuitive energy healing with individuals, couples,
Mhm. Okay.
children. I worked with a 4-year-old. That's a magical story. But I worked with a
Aw.
4-year-old that wouldn't eat for 4 days. By the time the little munchkin came to me, it was 4 days, and his mother was concerned. I would be too if my child didn't eat for 4 days.
Sure.
He got a piece of candy stuck in his throat, and it was such a freak accident.
Mm.
He was in the tub. Mom was saying, okay, we're almost done. Let's stay focused. Here's a little piece of candy. Come on. So she was gifting him a treat while she was there, and the doorbell rang, and she went to turn to grab the towel, to grab him, to pull him out. And as soon as she turned, he was like instantaneous, like Green Lantern. He was out the door. And she went, what? So here she is, got up, and he's halfway down the stairs. And remember, she gave him a piece of candy. When he got to the center of the landing, he breathed in and the piece of candy got stuck in his throat. By the time he was done at the bottom of the stairs, he ran right to Dad, who was opening the door for Grandma. And he's pulling on Dad's leg and he's pointing at his throat, couldn't breathe. It was stuck. Mom has some medical background, was right behind anyway, and saw the whole thing, scooped him up, Heimlich, out it came.
Sure.
He stopped eating. So my client at the time was a clinical social worker, and she said, oh, that child doesn't need me. She needs Terrie. So he came, sat on the floor. I put my hands around his throat, shifted the energy, gave him something to eat while he was there. He ate it. We hugged, we talked, him and I, little 4-year-old, so adorable. And I looked at Mom and I said, Mom, the one thing I'm going to tell you is no more of that candy. I said, if he sees it, he'll be triggered. I said, until he grows up a little more, I said, it'll be gone.
Wonderful.
She forgot. And 6 months later, she's back in my room and she said, it was Easter. I forgot. The little candy was in one of his plastic aids. Boom, he saw it. He stopped eating. So this go round, he laid on the table. And then as I put my hands on him, then he slowly turned into the fetal position and his thumb went right in his mouth. I took him right back to the embryonic stage.
Yeah.
Went right in the mouth. Mom looked at me. I had my hand on his shoulder and on his leg. Mom looked at me and she said, my son doesn't suck his thumb. I said, I didn't put it in there.
Yeah.
And he was just laying there.
Yeah.
And then all is great. He is 10 years old now, and he still asks me every year. And she'll bring him in. I saw him maybe about 6-7 months ago.
Yeah.
And he had some challenges with school, but it was so amazing to see how the 4-year-old, moves through the energy and how the body responded to that and where he is today. But the couples are amazing as well. I helped reveal the subconscious, how one can understand why another's being triggered, and then to shift that and then give them tips and tricks on how to respond, how to act differently, how to negotiate, and how to handle that one that's triggering, how she can handle or he can handle that. And usually when they come, one foot is out the door and one of the partners, meaning they're getting ready to go in separate directions, but they'll come back 30 days later. And that's my forever person. We're madly in love. And even the kids start changing because once they realize how to manage each other, they understand how to manage the triggers for the children. So this is like a gift that keeps on giving, that once you're able to help couples, I've saved so many couples from divorce. It's just so catapulting. Literally, it catapults me to the next client, the next couple, the next child to work with.
Wonderful. Well, where can we find you? Are you available online? Do you do in-person sessions?
I do it all. So when I started with energy work, there is no time and space with energy. So I have clients all over the world. So you can work with me remotely. I do have a private studio in Bethesda, Maryland, in the Metro DC area that I work with people face to face. People will fly in, drive in, and if they're local, walk in. I can be found if you Google my name. I have about 15 pages of various podcasts, telesummits, TV, radio. I've been on Good Morning Washington several times. So Google me and find my website and various different ways. I'm on TikTok. I do celebrity readings from pictures because pictures have the blueprint of the energy of the person. And so especially you should find the one with Cardi B. I love that one. I tell everybody to go back because there was a picture of her and her spouse. And I said, there's a crack. I said, he's doing something. She's not going to handle it. And it's going to go downhill. 4 months later, they announced they're getting a divorce. Like literally, that was amazing. And I did the follow-up with that. So that's cool. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. But just Google and I'm everywhere.
All right. Thank you. Well, this ends the first part of our journey. I'm going to continue to guide you into the second part of our journey with the questions from listeners and energy worker students. So here we go. Number 1, how can Megastream change your life?
Okay, so it's magstream, and that's okay. I actually had to put it together, and somebody asked me what was my favorite word. I said magnificent.
Okay.
So magstream actually is a 5-phase visualization technique. So it takes you where you are. So if you're in struggle or resistance or lack, so it'll take you there and then guide you through internal love. And it's
Mm,
5 phases through a guided meditation. And you can find that on my website at terriechristine.com under Work With Me.
beautiful. All right, number 2. What inspires you to write The Secret Power of You, a guide to your inner greatness?
At the time, I was doing whatever it took to learn and know and grow everything. So I took a course in speaking from stages. I took a course in speaking to media, and that's how I ended up getting through lots of the media and broadcast. And they're saying then that a book is an extension, like a business card, that you have to write a book,
Mm,
and it showcases you as an expert. And I am an expert in energy healing. So then I wrote the book, but it talks about, my story and my relationship with my partner and how it catapulted me. However, I call this your tool for success because there are tips and tricks on how to see your limiting beliefs and how to shift them. So it's not just a story, it's actually a blueprint of a tool for success to get you out of some of the struggle, hurt, pain, resistance that you have.
beautiful. Number 3, you offer an intuitive development training program and a personalized one-on-one training program. How can your program help me develop my intuition?
So it's very interesting that you're asking that question because I had a Reiki healer come to me and ask me that. And I said, look, I can supersize you. I can get you, because at that time she was only charging $75 an hour.
Mm,
I said, I can help supersize you into seeing the physical body remotely or face to face, being able to see their environmental and energetic blocks in their body and how you can shift it. And since you are a Reiki healer, most of your
mhm.
clients are face to face. I say most because you can do remote Reiki energy, but most of our clients are face to face. And I said, I can teach you all of that to supersize what you have already in your purse or wallet for you men. And then take it from there. And then it also supersizes all of your clairs. It also supersizes being able to speak to the non-physical, because in my course, it's a 7-month course and you're seeing me every 10 days remotely or face to face, depending where you are. Again, no time and space with energy. And it can give you everything and more. You'll find that some courses will not teach you mediumship stuff. That's a separate course. Or not teach you supersizing your clairs. That's a separate course. I put it all in everything. But the key component is I clear your limiting beliefs as I'm training you. I had a client that just literally, this is amazing at bringing up that question, just reached out yesterday and responded this morning before I got on this podcast. And she has all of this. She converted from her basic corporate world to energy. A lot of my clients do that. And she says, well, what could this intuition stuff, that's what she was calling it, help me with? And I said, it's going to supersize what you already know. And she said, I'm blocked because her training didn't incorporate clearing the subconscious as she was learning. So she's going to hesitate to think, and this always pops in, I'm not God. I don't know if I can tell them that. Well, you are connected to God and you're the messenger. You have to trust that what comes out needs to be shared. And that's why I say when I have these flashes, it needs to be shared. It'll help people understand and connect that to what I do and what I've experienced to what you are doing and experiencing. So it's going to supersize your current life. I tell people I'm not teaching you to be me. You can be whoever you want to be
Mhm.
with supersized gifts and talents.
Right.
I taught a woman who um, her corporate or her life was being a residential renovator. So they would renovate the inside of the house complete, or bathrooms or whatever. And when I met her, she was like almost going to close her business because it was going downhill. So within 2 months, she hired 10 people, because I had to clear all the fear of losing. I had to clear all her mama drama stuff, because her mom was a truck driver and kept her on the road all the time. So everything always changing, and the fear of it changing again, that fear, right? And then before the end of a first year, before she got her first $1 million client. So she went from almost losing everything to thriving,
Wow.
right? Not having to survive, but thrive. And so I taught her how to see, when she's hiring people, are their ear chakras wide open? If they're open, they have to be at a certain distance, because if they're too wide open, they're listening to everybody else, and that other is changing their opinions or their feelings. But if it's condensed, they don't want to hear anything you have to say, even when you're the owner. I said, you don't want to hire that person. So it has to be a balance of being able to receive what's on the outside and trust what's on the inside. So I teach all of that, so that you are thriving in whatever environment you're creating for yourself. May it be a corporate environment or an energy field environment that you want to move into that. But I supersize all of that so it's supporting you financially, emotionally, and spiritually.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, that was our last question. And as we were talking, is there anything that you may have forgotten or something that you'd like to share with the listeners? The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. So it's nothing that I've forgotten, because I'm like an elephant. Of being able to hear what I said. So I said a lot of information, but going back and listening to this again, meaning taking your time, you're listening to me the first time because you might have just found this podcast, or you followed Tracy and I'm new to you. But going back a second time and now absorbing everything that I've said to incorporate into your life. This simple podcast can alter your entire life if you take in what Tracy and I have been saying and sharing. That even though this is call it a mini workshop, it technically is. I gave you so many tips and tricks of how to alter and change your life, and then maybe even consider working with someone like us. That's what I suggest. You've heard me for the first time. Now go back and take it in. Thank you, Tracy. I'm very
Wonderful,
honored.
wonderful. And check out your website. Lots of great information on there. Lots of opportunities to learn with you and to go one-on-one. Love it.
Yes, thank
I
you
love
so
it.
much. Yep, you can find me all over the place, but I'm
Wonderful.
so grateful and honored.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Terrie Christine, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. International healer here. Wonderful. Make sure to listen to this over and over again. Lots of wisdom here. So, my wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on the podcast, reach out, www.readysetreiki.com. I'm Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready Set Reiki.